I always forget to do that. So, did you get that? Good. All right. So, let's do our roll call, please.
Matt Conant,
Present.
Nicholas McKelly. Here. Bruce Johnson,
Here.
Todd Kimmelshoe,
Here.
Bo Shepherd,
Here.
Dave Shaw,
Here.
Michael Pasquale,
Here.
Al Montna, Gary Marlar, Lack Fairgog,
Yes.
Mike Morris,
Here.
Chris Schmidl.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a quorum. Would we please stand for the flag salute? Mike Morris will lead us.
Please stand. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Now we need to do the selection of the 24 Sabuca chair and vice chair. Are there any nominations for chair?
I would be honored to nominate Todd Kimmelshoe for chair.
We have a motion, a second?
Done.
We have a second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Todd?
Thank you.
I don't know what I'm gonna do. You
Start behaving yourself, Mike.
Why start now?
I got an eye on you now. Okay, before we go ahead and choose a vice chair, I think we need a round of applause for Matt Conant for leading us this last year. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Todd.
Outstanding work. Okay, well, let's move on to, we'll open nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Mark Baumgarten.
Okay,
Second.
is there a second? Okay. Mike's not here to speak for himself.
Mark's not.
Mark. Mike, you want to speak for him?
He's happy to be acknowledged.
Okay, great. Okay. Good. You know what happens when you're not at a meeting? Funny things happen. So, all right. So, any other discussion? Okay. With that, we'll close nominations. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. We will let Mark know of that that decision. Okay. Next, we have on the agenda public comment. And we open public comment to anybody here who would like to speak on any item that's not on the agenda. And at this point, we cannot take any action or comment on any of the items if there is public comment. So is there any public comment? Did we have any public comment online, Tara? Nothing? Okay. With that, we will close public comment. All right. We'll move on to the consent calendar. And I believe the only thing on the consent calendar is the approval of the minutes from the December 13th meeting.
Through the chair, I'd like to recuse myself. I wasn't here for the meeting, so I won't be able to vote.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. So there's not many, there's no action items really on the agenda for today. Is that right, Michael?
That's correct.
Okay. But we do have the presentation, and we need to file for the monthly financial report. And we'll turn it over to Seth. Seth, why don't you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do to some of these people here that may not know you. And I think you have a guest today, too. Is that correct?
I do. Thank you, Chairman Kimmelshoe. Seth Wurzel with LWA, agency's budget manager. I have with me today Sean Myers in my office. He's the brains behind all of this. So I'll be stepping back over the course of the year. And Sean will be attending meetings, and we'll start making presentations later on in the year in my absence. So just wanted to introduce Sean, and he helps prepare the monthly reports and coordinates very closely with folks in Yuba City. And so he's the main contact between Tara and Sean, working with Yuba City on all of our finances. So I'll go ahead and start with the monthly financial report. So month ending December 31st, about $23.8 million. And then when we take into consideration Just as a reminder in the board packet, because we didn't have a meeting last month, you have the 2 monthly financial reports covering November and December. And so we'll focus on December, the month ending December this year for this month's report. So 23.8 million as month ending December, and then when we take into consideration activity since December 31st, about 25.6 million in the bank. Our revenues for last year and this year are shown on the slide, 882,000 for last year, another about 750,000 to date, taking into consideration our first apportionment of taxes received in January. In terms of capital revenues for last year, about 16.6 million, and for 23-24 for the current fiscal year, another 4.1 million to date. So when we take into consideration month ending December and accruals, about 5.3 million total in revenues. As usual, this slide shows the breakdown of that. On the right-hand side, just listing all the payments that we've got for all the grants. There's a lot in process. This is all the work that Sean's been doing, trying to make our claims with our multiple grants through the various agencies. When you take into consideration that 5.3 million, it's primarily made up of differences between what we've received in taxes as well as assessment revenues, about 3.8 million of that received since the beginning of the year, and then pending capital payments about 1.4 million. So this just provides the background and the summation of essentially everything that's accrued to date and what we're waiting on from the state.
Seth, I've got a quick question. Let's go back to that slide, okay? There's a large difference between the revenue from Butte County and Sutter County. Is that because only a portion of Butte County is assessed? Is that correct? And pretty much all of Sutter County is assessed?
That's correct. So this represents right here what you're pointing at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get our apportionments from the Butte County tax roll, what we submit to the Butte County tax roll, and what we submit to the Sutter County tax roll. And correct, this is what's been received for half of a year of assessments, essentially, from Butte County and Sutter County.
And Sutter County, but all of Yuba City is included in the Sutter County area.
Correct. It's when we're talking about the counties, the county tax rolls.
Right.
So received from the treasurer of the auditor's office, essentially.
But Seth, it's only on the west side of the river in
Yeah, this is just what the Sutter Butte assessment, Sabufka assessment impacts. So it's correct.
And then, it's not even I don't think it's even it's not the Robbins Basin, obviously, and it's not also the, anything, east of the bypass either, or west of the bypass.
Correct. Just the boundaries of our assessment district.
Just in this part, yep.
Okay. Okay, so then going through on the expenditure side, total paid and pending expenditures through December 23, and to date 7.3 million through December, and then a total of about 8.75 million when you take into consideration the accruals. And I won't go into details here, but this table shows where we spent our money in 2023 and 24. So you can see, primarily on the expenditures related to all the grants and work in the Oroville wildlife area. In terms of our financing, we our first debt service of 1.6 million due on April 1st for fiscal year 23-24 will be paid this week. So we just processed that, got the invoices, and those will be paid. And then the next debt service is, I haven't listed it here, but we'll start noting that. That'll be due in October. We'll start noting that in the on our next financial reports. Just can't remember the number off the top of my head right now. So in terms of our financial activities, kind of taking a step back and looking broadly at all the work that LWA is doing for the agency. These are as a listing of all the funding agreements, working on closeout for our Feather River West Levee EIP UFR grant, working on the final payments. Everything really on closeout is just pending on right-of-way transfer. There's 5 different grants supporting the OWA, Thermal Afterbay, and Robinson's Riffle projects, processing those payments, that big list that we provided. Small Communities Grant Tutor Study, processing payments on that, quarterly reporting. working on our invoice packages for the sediment removal, closing the prior grant out, and then the Sutter Bypass East Levee project agreement, working on our fourth quarterly report, so preparing that, and then working through finalizing the RFMP Phase 4 work. There's some budget work going on there and to kind of land that grant out. I'm sure, Michael, you'll be talking about that during the program project update. And then working on our City of Oroville Services Agreement. There's minimal expenses to date. It was shown on the prior slide, about $7,500 this far. So working to set the process up for claims with the City of Oroville for that. In terms of our assessment district administration, we talked a bit for a second there about the payments that have come in. Our consultant, Wildan, that administers our agreement for us, administers our assessment district for us, is working to prepare our continuing disclosure report for our bonds that's due at the end of March. We're just waiting on our annual financial audit to be presented and prepared for, to be presented in March. And then I'm sure Michael will talk about this more as well. We finalized the implementation of the Regional Development Impact Fee, and that will commence collection on April 8th. Now that all the land use agencies have taken all the necessary actions to implement the fee program. So that's been something that we've been working on for a bit over a year in support of the agency. So that concludes my financial report. If there's any questions, happy to answer them now, or any details on materials in the board packet.
Any questions for Seth? Yes, yes.
Either for you or for Michael, just when exactly was the sediment removal supposed to begin again? I just forgot.
So I will talk about that in my presentation. Yep.
Good question, though. Anybody else? Sean, did he miss anything? It's Sean, right? Sean, did he miss anything, or?
He did a wonderful job.
Did he? Okay.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that.
Great. Okay, with that, we will just file those. There's no action needed on those. Is that correct, Michael? And before I turn it over to Michael to talk about the many different programs and projects we have going, I did want to say that as a Board of Supervisor and as many of you city council members that are here, we all serve on many boards and many commissions, but I got to say that this one, and I've said this before in front of this group, is one of my favorites, because this is a group that actually gets things done, gets things accomplished. Sometimes it takes a long time to get those things accomplished, but I think all of us deserve a pat on the back, and including Michael and his staff for getting things done. So it's fun. It's fun to see big projects accomplished. And so, Michael, congratulations on what you do.
Great, thank you. And we got a good team, so it's a big team effort. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm gonna move into the program project update. First, I do want to thank Matt Conant for serving as the chair this past year. So, yeah, as the chair, we have conversations and ongoing communications and coordination. So I thank you for that, Matt. So appreciate it. Okay, Feather River West Levee Project 1. So as I've talked for many months now, we're in project closeout mode. We're closing out the environmental mitigation for the Star Bend and Matthews sites. That's where we mitigated for Valley Elderberry impacts. And Andrea and I are working closely with the resource agencies to final approval of all the documents to handle that mitigation. So we're getting very, very close. On cultural resources mitigation, we have a call set up with the Enterprise Rancheria. This is really the last step in the process to figure out what the tribe wants done with the artifacts that were taken out in Butte County that were removed from the levee and studied as part of the mitigation for the project. So we're working closely with the tribe, and we'll figure out direction from them as what they would like to see done with those materials. Sure. Where are they keeping all of that? So we have a consultant called Far West, and they're located in Davis.
Okay. So it's not in like the Sacramento, like in the Parks and Rec?
No, it's in Far West. They have a big warehouse where they study projects, artifacts and archaeological studies. Yep. Also,
Michael, before you get going, and I'm going to make you do a few things here, okay? First of all, since we have 3 or 4 different new folks here, just kind of explain which each program is, just real briefly.
absolutely.
I mean, just with these many things that we do.
Yeah, so the one I'm talking about now, that was the very large levee improvement project, what we called the Feather River West Levee Project. So that was basically around 40 miles of levee improvements from all the way in Thermalito Afterbay in the north down to Star Bend in the south, and then a little bit further south. We did a Laurel Avenue project also. So we're close. That work is all done. We've achieved our 200-year certification. We've made that milestone happen about 1.5 years ago now. But we're still closing out the project. We're still acquiring the last 2 parcels of real estate to officially close out the right-of-way acquisition process, and then these permit obligations, these environmental and cultural mitigation obligations, we're finalizing those also. On Feather River West Levee Project 2, so that's the remainder portion of the Feather River between the Highway 99 bridge and the Sutter bypass. It's about a 1.6 mile levee improvement project. We call that the Tudor Flood Risk Reduction Project. And so we're in design on that project. Our consultant finalized, or they're finalizing the 90% designs. Have those under review by our independent panel of experts and the Department of Water Resources and the Army Corps as part of our permitting process through the Army Corps. We're also working with the United Auburn Indian community. They're the local tribe associated with this geographical area. And they will participate in the construction, so they'll have tribal monitors out during construction. And actually in advance too, in some of we're gonna do some initial investigations prior to the contractor coming on board to determine if there's some cultural sensitive areas and highlight those and work through how to mitigate for those areas through construction. And we're also working with the Central Valley Board on our encroachment permit for that project. So in an ideal world, our schedule is finalizing the designs, the permits, and going out to bid at the end of this year and being in construction next year for that levee improvement project. So we're making really good progress. We held a independent panel of experts workshop last month where we highlighted this project and also the Sutter bypass, and we received a lot of good input from our independent panel of experts. So that project is advancing. One other item on this project is prior to Levee District 1 taking over the O&M responsibilities for this section of levee, which was in State Maintenance Area 3, the state, as part of the 2019 storms, there were some impacts in this area. It wasn't levee impacts, but it was sloughing into the landside canal adjacent to the levee. So the state put in for Public Law 8499 repairs. That's a federal program administered through the Army Corps. So if the Army Corps selects that as a project, they will come out and perform the repairs for those areas within the canal. So Levee District 1 and ourselves, we're coordinating this work with the Army Corps and the state to ensure, number one, are they going to do the work? And number two, if they are, then when are they going to do it, and how would that potentially impact our levee improvement project, or how would we coordinate those two efforts? So that is underway right now. So, yep.
If I could ask, so do you know yet how do they do that construction? Is it some sort of retaining wall in the canal, or how do they?
What I heard, they're still evaluating alternatives, but one of the alternatives they talked about mostly was actually relocating the canal, moving it away from the levee, which would be a benefit to the levee operations. But that requires coordination with the landowner. So the Central Valley Board, as the Army Corps' partner in this project, they have to they have to deliver the real estate rights for whatever project. So they're working on that right now. And we're watching that and we're coordinating with them on that. Yep.
So they won't be making more work for us when we go in and,
That's correct. Yeah, we
Show us
want to
the
make
ground.
sure, our contractors aren't there at the same time. And so we're coordinating that work. Of the Sutter bypass. Yeah, right. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I've underlined each one. So these are different projects. So Sutter bypass, East Levee repair. So the Sabufka has a funding agreement with the state of California Department of Water Resources to design and permit 5.2 miles of repairs of the Sutter bypass. So our agency identified the 3 worst areas in that Sutter bypass. It's about a 17-mile long levee. And we identified those 3 areas, so we just combined all 3 into a 5.2 mile linear project. So we received a $4 million grant from DWR, and Sabufka's putting in some funding to design and permit that project. So we're underway on that. We have achieved a 35% design package that's under review by our independent panel of experts and the state. We'll be advancing that to a 65% level package. That's when we can trigger the Army Corps' 408 review of our project. So they need our project to be at a 65% design stage before they implement their reviews. Because they want to know, at that point in time, what your project is, you've defined it, you've started, you're well on your way of designing the repairs. So that's when they start their 408 process. We're also, DWR has their own consultant who is going to produce the environmental document, the CEQA document, but our consultant will be producing the environmental permits for the project. So we sort of split those duties up. So the more good news for this project is we're applying for a FEMA grant to pay for the construction of the project, and it's well over $50 million. It's 55 million or something like that. And we had to coordinate with Cal OES, who through California, the state of California, Cal OES is the one who receives all the grant applications that would go to FEMA. So they're sort of the clearinghouse. And they'll wean out applications. So they put it through a thorough review through their consultant to determine, if they apply for the various FEMA programs and if they meet certain metrics for, benefit cost analysis. So you have to achieve a certain benefit cost ratio in order for the project to be viable, for it to compete nationally for funding. So we've achieved that hurdle. So Cal OES has accepted our project for both BRIC grant and FMA grant through FEMA. So that's 2 different types of grants, and we're applying for both. So that's the good news. We haven't heard exactly when those grants will be submitted to FEMA. Cal OES is in the process of collecting them all. So when I get more information, I'll keep bringing that information back to the board.
Okay, Michael, you're not going to like me, but I'm going to make you tell. I hate acronyms. So why don't you explain to us what those acronyms are and anything that's an acronym as you go by.
Okay, yeah, so I apologize. So yeah,
No,
this
don't apologize.
world of flood control is a lot of acronyms. So FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and you said, all right, Todd, do you know BRIC, or should I go through that one? All right. All right. So now you're putting me on the spot here, so I got to remember it. So building resiliency and infrastructure communities, something to that effect. That's BRIC. And then FMA is flood mitigation assistance. Thank you. All right.
I told you were gonna hate me.
Yeah. Yeah, we just use we can string about 5 acronyms in a sentence and. Okay, so that's the Sutter Bypass project. So the next one is the Orville Wildlife Area Robinson's Riffle project. So there's actually 2 embedded in here. So the first one is the planning grant that we have, a $1.1 million planning grant from DWR. And so we're defining a project up in the Orville Wildlife area. It's a multi-benefit project. So we're looking at flood stage reduction, ecosystem enhancements. So a lot of work for improving the habitat for migrating salmon, recreational and O&M improvements. So we're working with our state partner DWR and CDFW to define the project, and we're also working with other stakeholders in the region. So ultimately, we're going to have a preferred alternative as we get through this planning effort. We have our second workshop planned for next month, and we're utilizing all of our stakeholders to help us define that project. We also have a $2.1 million grant. So once we have the project defined, we have some money to start advancing the design and permitting for that project. So ultimately, we're looking at a lot of mine tailings removal, which will help flood stage reduction, also help create new habitat, side channels for migrating salmon. Those type of improvements are the majority of what we're looking at up in that area. As part of that process, we identified what we call a no regrets project. It's the boat ramp and campground project right at the Thermalito Afterbay. And we applied for various grants, and we were successful in acquiring 2 grants totaling $7.7 million. One is through the Wildlife Conservation Board, and the other is through U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, wheeled through CDFW, California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So Chris gave a presentation a couple of months ago on where we are in the design. It's really going to be a great project for that area. Right now, it's just a blank slate with a boat ramp that's in disrepair. So we're going to create a brand new boat ramp for 2 boat launches at the same time. We're converting the existing boat ramp into a non-motorized boat ramp, and then we're constructing over 20 campsites for that area. So it's going to be a really good improvement for that area. We are in the design process now and permitting. We have a 65% design package that is under review. We're kicking off the Central Valley Board encroachment permit process, which triggers the Army Corps 408 review process. So with the ideal goal of getting through the rest of this year in design and permitting and be able to go out for contract bidding next year, early next year or towards the end of this year, and have a contractor on board about this time next year for construction in 2025. So that's our process for the boat ramp and campground project. Okay, for sediment removal, as Seth indicated, we're closing out the first $5 million grant. We got through the state where we cleaned out the boat ramps at Live Oak and Yuba City and a good portion of the Feather River channel right at the confluence of the Yuba. But there's that very large island that's, there, and it's vegetated and it's growing. That's our phase 2 project. We have permits to do that work. We just don't have funding. So as the board is aware, we've been applying for various grants through the past year. Unfortunately, we haven't been successful to date, but we have a NOAA grant submitted, and we hear that we're going to hear some news. We thought it was going to be spring, but it's looking like more like summer of this year when we would find out if we're successful or not. So we applied for the full, it was like $10.2 million in the grant. So we're hopeful, we'll keep our fingers crossed. We're also, through our former chair, Mr. Conan, we set up a meeting with Yuba Water Agency. We're having that next week to see if there's any interest of the partnering with the Yuba Water Agency for that project in some capacity. So we're going to have a conversation And I know Board Member Morris has also been reaching out to his contacts at the Yuba Water Agency. So we're doing everything we can to keep advancing that project. We had a meeting with Senator Nilo. As a result of that meeting, he reached out to DWR and CDFW, and he met with both of their directors and talked specifically about the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency desire to complete that Phase 2 project. They didn't commit to any money, but the DWR committed to writing a letter of support, which we submitted to the NOAA to help support our grant application. So we're keeping our fingers crossed there. Under our regional flood management planning process, I talk about the various programs that we are advancing and projects that we're advancing through that state-funded effort. Our Phase 4 grant was about $260,000. We're getting close to the end of that budget, and we're coordinating with DWR on a round 5 funding, or a Phase 5 for that grant. And we hear that they have that money budgeted, but what we're hearing is there's no further money after that as a result of the state budget not being in a very good position right now. So unfortunately, that funding helps us participate in the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan update, which has to be done every 5 years. And that allows us and our consultants to participate and input our projects into that planning effort. So we're going to see where that goes. The good news is we hear that Phase 5 is funded, so it should be in around $340,000 for our agency or our region. Sabufka is the lead on administering the grant. But that's helped us apply for other grants. It helped us advance the Feather River West Levee Financing Authority agency, that helped fund our efforts to put that agency into place. It's also helping us fund our input into the Cherokee Canal Corridor Management Plan, and also climate change resiliency, a white paper that our region is putting out there. So a lot of good planning work is funded through that effort. Next slide, please. This is my last slide. All right, so going with the theme of not a lot of state money being available, that's where our efforts to help the city of Orrville, we've had a meeting with DWR to look at various funding programs that would help advance our efforts to help the city, but unfortunately, none of the programs that the state had as a potential are funded. They have no budget for those programs right now. So what we're hoping for is we applied for a program through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We submitted that application last year. We're hoping to hear something soon on that, whether they would pick the city as a pilot for that program, and they would perform a feasibility study at no cost to the locals. So we're waiting to hear on that one as well. So we're continuing to coordinate with city staff. We are advancing an inundation mapping study for the city, and it's being funded through one of the previous projects I talked about, the Orrville Wildlife Area Planning Grant. The state augmented our grant to include inundation mapping for the city. And that was as a result of a board member, Connolly, voiced his concerns about the current inundation maps that weren't accurate. So we're working on updating those maps. We're working with city staff and all the locals up there who have experience and knowledge of how flooding occurred in the past. And we're in the process of reviewing those maps with them right now. On the the Sutter Basin Flood Risk Management Project, so that's the federal project. That was the 5-mile repair that the Army Corps performed between Star Bend and Laurel Avenue, essentially. And the Corps is still in the process of closing out that project. Sabufka is going to be advancing some repairs to brand new facilities that were constructed by the project for Feather Water District
that need repairs. So they were leaking, the meter vaults and valve vaults had some leaks. So we're going to go out there and do a repair project for the Corps utilizing funding that the Army Corps sent back to our agency. So we're hoping to advance that design. We'll coordinate closely with Feather Water District to ensure that we time our repairs properly with their operations. We're also, we're closing out the federal crediting side of things. So Sabufka and the state, because we advanced the Feather River West Levee project ahead of the Corps, we performed a lot of those repairs at state and local cost, but as we do that, we achieve federal credit. So the Army Corps would have contributed to that project, but because we advanced it ahead of them, we have credit on the books. So we're in the process of perfecting those credits with the Army Corps. So they have to look at what we constructed, what were the costs. They do all of that accounting, and then they'll true up. They'll say, okay, these numbers are what the work is, what we would have done, and the costs are in line with what we would have paid, type of thing.
So is this still closed session item? We don't have any idea what the estimate might be of that?
Right. Well, we believe our federal credit number to be about $28.9 million. That's the amount of credit we want to sell to SJAFCA. So we're in the process of still in those.
Get that full amount possibly?
No. So it'll be at a discount. Yeah. So I have a meeting set up with Todd and Charlie Hoppin, who are our ad hoc committee to help me negotiate this deal at the end of this month. So we've advanced our negotiations. So I'm going to brief Todd and Charlie at the end of the month, along with Scott Shapiro and Rick Reinhardt, who was my consultant, and then Scott is the agency counsel working on this on behalf of both agencies. He's just helping us facilitate the deal. He's not negotiating any part of it. But he's going to help explain where things are and answer any questions to Todd and Charlie. And once they're comfortable, then I'll be bringing that back to this full board. Yeah. So I'm actually looking at, it's a good question because the timeline is we're hoping to have our deal agreed upon in the next month and then take forms of agreement to this board, by probably April, and then maybe a final agreement in, say, June, and then it'll be done. So that's where we're at on the federal side of things. FEMA remapping, we are finalizing our Sutter County FEMA package. We've had meetings recently with the Sutter County staff, Live Oak staff, and we'll be having some with the Yuba City, because all those agencies are affected or need to be involved in this process. The good news is, we've taken Live Oak and Yuba City out of the floodplain as a result of the Feather River West Levee project. Sutter County is administering the floodplain based on the maps that we've produced for what will be submitted to FEMA. So they're doing good floodplain administration right now with the best available information. And we had a meeting with FEMA a couple of weeks ago to discuss and advance this process. So it's all coming up real soon, and we should be submitting to FEMA within the next couple months. Now, with that said, it's going to take FEMA, it took 3 years to get through the Butte remapping. It's going to take longer to get through this one because it's much more complicated. Okay, regional development impact fee, as Seth talked about, we were successful. We've concluded that process. We had really good coordination with all of the city and county staff to finalize this process, and with the councils and the boards. They all approved this item, and it's going to become effective April 8th. So that's when, the money will start rolling into the agency. No, I'm just kidding. But we don't know what's actually going to happen there. It all depends on new development. So as new development occurs, new development will pay an impact fee, and those revenues will come back to the agency.
That's just on new dwelling?
It's a one-time
and
on new development. No, it could be an add-on to a home, but it has to be greater than 500 square feet.
And so I just want to ask you, did all the entities, municipalities, they all approved them, right?
That's correct, yes.
It was all a unanimous vote at every municipality, right? With the exception of one?
With the exception of one, but we only had one no vote, so it
You
was.
had one no vote through, all of the, and do you mind telling us where that was?
Yeah.
Blackbeard's not looking at me.
It was one no vote at City of Live Oak.
City of Live Oak, okay. Everybody needs to know that Lackfair couldn't get his whole board on board with this thing.
I had all 6 members on it.
Well, the record, Lockbeard did vote yes.
But Lackfair did vote yes? Well, thank you, Lackfair, appreciate that.
Okay, so yeah, so we're, so thank you to everybody on this board who helped make this happen. This is a real success to the agency. And in the last bullet, I just want to, since at the beginning of flood season, we heard all the rumors and stories about El Nino and it's going to be a crazy year and nobody knew what was going to happen. So I've had this as an outstanding item every month so we could talk about where things are. We had a couple of good storms recently. Now, LA, Southern California had really crazy storms, right? Atmospheric rivers just sitting right over them. I think LA got over 10 inches of rain within 48 hours or something crazy like that. That just doesn't happen historically. So that's why we got to just, be mindful of what's out there. And you never know where Mother Nature is going to take these atmospheric rivers and how long they'll sit over a basin. So we do have a storm coming up this weekend. I hear we're going to get about 3 days of rain. It doesn't sound like it's going to be, overly concerning, but I just want to keep this on here until we get out of flood season to have these communications. No, we're good.
I think, I look at the paper, the Enterprise record always has the levels of the lake. And today, Oroville was at 79% and Shasta was at 83%. So do you have any idea how they come up with those numbers? I mean, why they try to keep it at that level? Is that for flood protection?
Well, they're keeping it historically higher than they have in the past because they're utilizing forecast informed reservoir operations. So they're able to forecast better now. They're able to understand how much snowpack is in the mountains. So they're trying to manage it. Now, this is on the flip side of Supervisor Connolly's concerns. He wants to see a bigger flood pool available rather than saving water. There's a balancing act there. But that's how the state, in my understanding, that's how the state is managing the lake, the reservoir right now.
Yeah, just a comment, DWR, them operating those reservoirs, it's a different generation. You can tell that it doesn't seem like they're being quite as safe as far as that goes. But I do have another question. Can we go back another slide or two where you were talking about the engineering for the levees on the bypass?
Sure.
So it looked like you got some money there from those agencies, right, for the design?
Right. So from DWR, we got $4 million for the design and permitting for that project.
So you and I and Matt, we've had, separate conversations. This is Sutter County, and we've talked about this with our lobbyists and everything, but are these some of the same agencies you think we should be going to ask for design money for the possible story wall to reduce those FEMA flood maps even more?
Yeah, and that's what that project is. So it's a design of a cutoff wall.
That's just, really, that's for the whole thing?
No,
Just the
5
5 miles?
miles, right.
Well, what I'm saying is, we would go back to those same agencies to try to get the design for the entire levee.
Yes, right. We started in the worst, the weakest area. Right, and we've applied for FEMA money to construct those improvements, because right now we don't have any construction money budgeted or anywhere. So, yeah, so our next meeting is in March. I'll probably have, we didn't have any action items this month, but I know we're going to have some action items next month for the Army Corps federal project to be able to transfer those credits, so that some of that's going to be out there. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, I'm turning it back to you, see if there's any other questions from the board.
No, but I wanted to thank Dave and Michael and Gary for being here as alternates. And hopefully educated you a little bit on what's going on here. So, yes,
Chair.
yes,
So-
Mr. Shepherd.
Any idea when DWR is going to come and talk about the Cherokee project?
Yeah, we're coordinating that, but we're thinking maybe April or May. It's probably more going to be like May. And I'll keep you posted on that.
And they'll come to this group?
Yeah, I want to have them
great.
come and talk to this board to lay out what their plans are for the Cherokee Canal
And
improvement.
let's get our arrows for them.
No, thank you.
All right, anything else? Andrea, did we do okay? Okay. Tara, got anything? Okay. Adjourned.
All right, thank you.